Again, Glitch Reaper here. I'm back here for some more Magic the Gathering tutorials here with Magic Duels. So, I was going to go in and let's see here. I think there was a few things I was going to do that seem, again, like they should have been included for the most part in the basics. There's a few things like that I can definitely see were misplaced. Or at least that section could have been extended. I mean, this one has like, not really 36 pages, but it goes out for basically here, and then it goes into, like, kind of leading directly into them. But still, the initial section could have been extended. Now, admittedly, there are some things that have changed over time, including certain rules about how things have happened. So, for those of you who are long-time players of Magic the Gathering, you'll note there's been some pretty, it's pretty extensive changes as to how your whole turn is structured, actually, and that has to do with the mana pool. And then there's some other things I consider pretty basic to how the game is played that I'll be going into. But for now, I'm going to go right into the mana pool and the fact that it has really changed. Now, previously, I'd been kind of showing parts of this in a way because it's so basic to the game, it's like constantly used. But again, for those who are new, remember, tapping your lands gives you mana. But it's more to it than that, as you're probably about to see. But yeah, in this game, you usually don't tap lands in advance. In the physical card game, you often kind of do, although it's not too far in advance. It's like, well, I'm gonna be casting this, and then you like tap your lands to pay for it, and then that happens. So it's kind of like that, but not exactly. Again, there are some differences because this is an electronic game as opposed to a physical game. But basically, this is also going over the dynamics of how Magic Duels itself works. Although you could kind of say that's kind of concurrent with the physical game in some other ways too. It says normally when you cast a spell, your lands tap automatically to pay for the spell's mana cost. However, your lands can produce mana almost any time. Zoom in on a land to use its mana ability. You can use that mana along with your untapped lands to cast spells or activate abilities. Now there's something very special about this scenario you're about to see, and it's how they have restructured the turn itself. It used to be, and I'm saying this very specifically, it used to be where as long as it was considered your turn, your mana pool stayed throughout the whole thing until the end of turn. Whenever your turn ended, if you had too much mana left over for some reason, like you had forgot to actually pay for something with it because you had paid too much in advance, then you would actually receive damage for how much mana you had left. So that is something that used to be around. Now that is no longer true, both in the physical card game and here in Magic Duels, because they've restructured the basic rules of the game over time to rehash it and just show continuing evolution. Because when the game very first started, they didn't know how long it would last, because it was very experimental. It was like the first of its kind. Again, Magic the Gathering was the very first true card game based on like collectible cards instead of players cards, as they call them. You know, like the classic decks that you'd play like blackjack or poker or go fish with or whatever. But yeah, so for these customized cards, that was a new concept. Like, they had no idea, so they were still just throwing rules out to figure out what would work. So over time, they've changed things to be not, I wouldn't exactly say more modernized, but kind of more like how they felt the game should feel rather than being something extraneous. So yeah, they've changed this very big. Now you'll also see here that you have this whole symbol that's not exactly a token. This represents a point of mana that's currently in your pool. So whenever you see one of these on the field, that means it's mana that hasn't been specifically spent on something yet, but it's already been produced. So it means it's hanging there and you haven't specifically shown that you are going to be casting a very specific card and therefore using up the mana for it instantly, basically. So this is basically, I guess you could say, hanging mana. or transitory mana. Now, the current rules are different, and that's where this symbol comes in this game to show you that. Because the current rules have it where mana no longer burns you, so to speak, but instead it also disappears faster. Like, now that I've shown how combat phases work otherwise, you should note that your mana will disappear at the end of each of those phases, not just the end phase. So it can go between one phase and another and just disappear very quickly, because if you do it at the very beginning of your turn, but then you don't spend it on something, then it'll just disappear. So the normal way to do cards in Magic Duels, or in general, is to do it at that exact moment to spend exactly what you need. But there are situations where you might need to build your pool up for very particular reasons, and this is about to show one of those scenarios that gets a little tricky. Now, this is also one of those scenarios that can only really be fulfilled exactly in the modern version of the game, which is after Planeswalkers became cards, because this particular skill quest has one assisting you with showing exactly how this dynamic works about hanging mana and basically dealing with phase rules and stuff like that. So this is where things get a bit different. And this is basically about winning the game this turn. So this is one of the times where you have to do it right now. And here's the scenario. Right now we have a considerable chunk of lands, namely 5 of them. What we have in our hand here is a creature spell in the form of Volcanic Dragon. It's got I'll zoom in. Has flying and haste. So basically this is how you win this turn, is you cast this creature. Because if you can summon this dragon, because it has flying and haste, and the enemy over there doesn't have enough health to get past one hit. In fact, again with these skill quests, usually it's usually very exact. So therefore, you'll finish them off. But here's the other thing. This Volcanic Dragon has a casting cost of 4 generic and 2 red, or what you could call a generic or converted cost of 6. See the problem? We only have 5 lands. So, yeah, that's an issue. Well, the thing is, they've given you the solution, and right now it's bordered in red. Kiora, Master of the Depths. She's a Planeswalker, and yes, she is available in the game, unlike that Volcanic Dragon. So, if you're playing Magic Duels, you can collect her by using boosters of Battle for Zendikar. But the thing is that, as with normal with Planeswalkers, they don't use mana or tapping normally to use their abilities. And she hasn't used up one of her so-called loyalty abilities yet for this turn, so she's freely available. Now, she's got several abilities here, namely 3 of them, but most of these don't actually matter. The big thing here is that you're going to need to use this first one. And that tends to be how you tend to use Planeswalkers the majority of the time anyhow. Also, because the others would be too much of a price, you can't even use these 2 abilities anyhow right now. So it's very, very, very much guiding you straight to what you need. But this ability says untap up to 1 target creature and up to 1 target land. Now, whenever you untap a land, it's available for giving you mana again, and that's how this comes in. Now, her special ability would normally also allow you to untap a creature as well, and that would be very useful, but you don't have a creature on the field in this scenario. However, it's mainly untapping a land that you need to do, and note that this will all be within your first main phase in this scenario. She'll get +1, meaning she'll have 2 loyalty counters on her, and but because that can only be used once per turn, she won't be able to use like any of her other abilities. But again, it's only about using this one exact ability to cast this creature. So, in this case, I use the ability to do that, but first I need to tap them all. You can tap lands at any time. Again, remember that. It's just whether or not their mana stays around for you to do something with that's the difference. But basically, I need to tap them all. And in the game, whenever you click on a land, it'll always automatically zoom in, and it will also automatically give you the option of hitting the tap symbol to say, oh, I'm tapping this right now, go ahead and let me do that. Okay, now I have 5 points of mana, but I still need 1 more, so I need to aim a little bit. Now, whenever you're aiming at a card that's part of a stack, usually because you've got a lot of tapped creatures or lands that are pretty much the same, or in the case of lands, it'll just be a stack of the lands even if they're mixed of different exact cards. Because with lands, once they're tapped out, they pretty much can't be used again until next turn anyhow. So they pretty much just compile them here. Well, the thing is, I need to very specifically aim, and this is kind of showing how that works, because right now I'm going island, island, the one in the middle, mountain. Aha, I have correctly clicked mountain. Now I have enough that, combined with my untapped land and the ones that have already tapped for mana, I have a big enough mana pool to cast this creature. And watch those little points of mana in your pool just go away like deceased tokens. Well, time to finish off the enemy. As usual, the answer is to just attack what you got when it comes to the skill quest, so goodbye. See ya. Hey, look, clones. Kind of. But yeah, so basically it's a quick reminder that most of the time you won't have to tap your lands manually like that. And you can look for effects that can untap your lands so you can cast more powerful spells sooner than you normally could. And that floating mana will disappear if you move on to the next part of your turn before spending it. In other words, whenever a phase of any sort ends, it goes poof. And as I said, it's kind of floating or loose mana at the time. And they're calling it floating specifically, so there's a reminder for me that they call it floating mana. But yeah, you can actually kind of artificially inflate your mana pool if you have certain things that allow you to untap lands, thus allowing you to cast something much bigger than you normally would if you basically go all out and dedicate yourself to it. So that's one of those times where you can kind of go outside the usual flow of the game and do something special so that you can do something much bigger. Okay, now I'm going to go over some other things that I think, again, should be very basic, including things about abilities themselves. In this case, I'm going with activated abilities. They're ones that, kind of like I was using with Cura before, you have to choose to use. They're not something that's in reaction to something else, they're not automatic, they're not an ability that's based on the creature like flying or menace. It has to do with attacking, and only operates when you're doing that. No, this is something that's whenever you choose to use it. So that's kind of how I can put activated abilities in a nutshell, is they're exactly what they sound like. And now they may have their own special extra costs, or they may just be usable by tapping the creature. But usually they have to be chosen to be used. In the case of Planeswalkers, an activated ability is any of their loyalty abilities, and that will adjust the loyalty counters on them. So kind of a quick rundown of various ways you might see activated abilities. Hey, we're back to the training drone. No more clone. But yeah, so some of these things I've kind of already shown and went over. But yeah, again, you need to look out for the tap symbol here to know if something requires you to tap it. Anything that hasn't been under your control yet for that hold at the beginning of that turn, or that doesn't have haste, in general, you may have to wait until you can do that. But if it has haste, or if it's already been under your control for a turn, then you'll be able to tap them. So usually things with a tap ability have a slight delay on their ability to be used, although again that's not always true. And some things can give other things haste to speed them up. So when it comes to activated abilities that require tapping, that's one thing. But some of these activated abilities just require the payment of mana or some other cost. I have to defeat my opponent this turn, apparently. Okay, so again, let's see what we got here. Uh, the score apparently is 3-2 in the enemy favor. We have a Skyhunter Skirmisher in our way. These are actually kind of intense both directions, even though they're small, because flying and double strike, oh, that's painful. Double strike means it first deals damage before anything else that doesn't have first strike or double strike, and then it attacks again. So double strike is what it sounds like, and it's really nasty. Now, interesting note for anything with double strike, any uh, any anything at all that improves their power, you have to think of that number doubled over because they strike twice. So yeah, that can be hilariously powerful. Uh, and I also have this rather large elk in my way. So yeah, that's what I can see on the enemy side. Let's see what we've got here. We have a Crow and Jailer. They can use their special ability that is an activated ability to tap a target creature. This has nothing specific. This has the ability to sacrifice it to deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Now this has 3 points of attack power, so you're kind of pointed out that this is probably your thing to actually attack with. This can tap any creature, so you can tap the one in your way that's really large, and this one doesn't actually have that much toughness right now, so if I were to, say, haul a exploding goblin over to it and blow it up, then that would take care of the problem. That's 2 damage, and it only has 1 point of toughness in my way. So, let's watch things go poof, shall we? Choose a creature or player to deal 2 damage to. Goodbye. Oh, by the way, I have my control set up where if I hit control, it changes what the targeted lands are that's going to be providing mana for something. That's a very important key, so you might want to make sure you got that set up. So, quick side note. So I sacrificed that creature as part of the activated ability and paid 1 point of mana. No tapping involved. And now that that flying double striking creature is out of my way. Now, this time I'm paying mana and tapping my Crow and Jailer to tap a creature. So I am tapping this rather large elk and getting that out of my way. I'm moving on to attack because I have nothing else I can do. And this rather nice elephant here that's well armored is about to charge into action and flatten my enemy. Probably like a pancake. I mean, it's an elephant. So, goodbye. Again, the solution is just attack. Well, after doing the other things. And here's a reminder of the price of tapping a creature to activate an ability. That even though it might be really useful to do so, you also got to remember that once the creature is tapped as part of the ability, it won't be able to attack or block until it's untapped again. So that's one thing to remember. Now, sometimes you can do as it says and block with the creature and then use its tap ability when it's already blocking. Yeah, that's another thing you can kind of do. And it's kind of a cool trick. There's a lot of things in the rule book you don't exactly see initially, but that is one of the things in the rules. To say, okay, faked you out, click. Okay, so that was for activated abilities. I'm going to go now to something I kind of hinted at a little bit before, in a way. And that's, I was mentioning abilities that happen in response to something else. Well, that's what this is, triggered abilities. These are ones that whenever something specific happens, it automatically occurs. Triggered abilities can enter over and over and over, as long as the condition applies. Usually they don't have anything like a special cost to them or anything, they just happen. There are some very specific things that are kind of like crosses between triggered abilities and activated abilities. To say when something happens you may pay or do something else to do something specific. That's something that has come up more than once, but that's kind of like a hybrid ability and not what they're going at specifically here. This is for the majority of triggered abilities that just plain happen once the condition occurs. So, let's do something automatic. Okay. Okay, we are here.
Some abilities trigger whenever something else happens in the game. These are called triggered abilities. For example, many creatures have abilities that trigger when they enter the battlefield. If an ability triggers on an event you can repeat, such as playing a land, you can reap the rewards every time.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was saying. It's really weird that voiceover didn't occur on my end for the other lessons, but now this one suddenly is. Oh well, quick side note about how I'm perceiving the audio.
Complete this skill quest by using triggered abilities to defeat your opponent this turn.
Okay, this is another defeat your enemy this turn scenario. And this looks like it's going to be fairly quick. Okay, Foundry Street Denizen. Aha. Starter box, which means probably got one of these. Whenever another red creature enters the battlefield under your control, Foundry Street Denizen gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So it powers up a little. Nice. Again, remember that the number before the slash is power and represents its ability to attack. So basically he gets a little bit angrier, and, or rather, a little more riled up whenever he has an assistant. Manic Vandal also has a triggered ability. Whenever it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact. So, yeah, and again, whenever you don't see anything here, that means it's only in the skill quests and for that matter, the story mode quests. So, yeah. I'm playing that, and interesting quick note. Whenever something happens that gives you a specific kind of target you can do with, the game, again, the game here, Magic Duels, will automatically outline anything you can actually use it against. Normally, if you're in the physical card game, you just look over the battlefield and see what has the thing that applies, and whether or not you should do it in the first place. In this case, it's going, hey, look, there's an artifact in your way that you can destroy. This is an artifact that's a wall. So it's just a steel wall. It's a literal wall. That's what it's there for. So, yeah, that's got to go, because it's literally a wall in my way. And because that entered the battlefield, it triggered its ability to get rid of the wall, and this one triggered its ability to power up. And that means now I'm triggered to say attack with all. So it all is cause and effect. You know, I should probably just think of that as cause and effect.
Excellent! Many creatures do much more than just attack and block.
Very big general statement there. But it's not always based on a triggered ability either. Clickety clickety. Now, here's another thing that's pretty basic. I'm pretty sure I hadn't went over it before specifically, but X spells and repeatable abilities. This is another thing that's very basic in the game, and you will see these kind of things very, well, sort of often. I wouldn't say extremely often, but sort of often. Things that let you do something either over and over and over again, or allow you to simply pay a general sum, and then the effect just scales up. And so if you have a ton of mana to spend, this is definitely one of those scenarios that you might want to go for it. But yeah, this can apply to a lot of things, is this kind of saying here, including on creatures and in, like, instants and sorceries. In instants and sorceries, the effect has to happen right then. Like, you pay the however much you need to pay on X. If something has a payment of X, that generally means you can just scale it up with how much money you spend. Similarly, X and asterisks can occur in other contexts as well. Like saying that something gets a bonus of +X until end of turn where X is fill in the blank value here, like say the number of artifacts you control or number of creatures in your graveyard or something like that. And at the same time, there's things that have asterisks on them, specifically on the power or toughness of a creature where it's determined by some other factor, like, oh, say the number of creatures in play or something like that. In this case, we're discussing a lot about X, but sometimes it's not X. Sometimes it's a specific color of mana that says you can pay that mana and you can do something, but with no other thing involved like tapping it or anything like that. Just you can pay that mana or not even necessarily color, but just you pay that mana, you can do that thing. Well, in those cases, you can repeat that or just say you're spending that much on it, even though it's not something with X specifically attached. So that's another quick note. Sometimes you're not looking for X, you're just looking for something where there's not really a specific limit attached. So either way, let's go and show what this has in it for this one. Training drone is getting a workout today.
Some spells and abilities let you spend any amount of mana. A spell that has X in its mana cost lets you choose any value for X, so you determine how many lands to tap while casting that spell. The more lands you tap, the larger the effect. Similarly, a creature may have an activated ability that you can repeat by spending more mana.
Which is kind of how I described it before.
To complete this skill quest, survive your opponent's attack and win on your next turn.
Okay, so this isn't a this turn thing. This is a survive the attack and then do things. Okay. Now let's just look at the cards in our hands right now. We have a Pyre Charger. I can scroll in even while that thing's on there. That's nice to know. It has haste, and it can be powered up over and over again. The more red mana you spend, the more power it gets. Because it has a 1 red mana, Pyre Charger gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So you can really charge this thing up. And in my experience in the not skill quest, but the story mode quest, this thing can be used as a glass cannon. Like, you literally could just power it up extremely and maul the enemy for like 1 turn. But it can only take 1 hit, because even though you can keep powering up its power, you cannot, however, bolster its defense. So its toughness will remain the same. So yeah, again, like a glass cannon. And apparently this takes 2 red, but we have a lot of red over here. Oh, taking 2 red and X, we have a Volcanic Geyser. Deals X damage to target creature or player. Yikes. That's one of those things that can get pretty nasty. Now, my enemy has 9 points of health remaining. That's a decent amount, actually. So let's see how many we've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's actually a considerable amount. And at the same time, because it's my opponent's turn, I'll be getting a card next turn, presumably another mountain. So that'll actually be a set of 10. So let's see what all it can actually do next time. Hey you. There you go. Okay, so I can basically just roast this creature. Because it's my turn and this is an instant card, again, instant means anytime, well, that means I'm about to play this and blow that creature away. Because I couldn't play this because it's on my enemy's turn, but this, on the other hand, I can just shred. Especially when it gives me the option for 8 ton of mana. And the answer here is just play it all. So goodbye. Phew, that's a lot of land tapped at once. And if a creature's annihilated before it can attack, it's gone. But sometimes the best defense is a good offense and vice versa, especially in this game, because I just blew that creature out of the park and it couldn't even hit me. As I said, mountain time. Now it's time to play the Pyre Charger. Now it's ready to attack because it has haste, so no summoning sickness. Yay! And now I can also use its ability a whopping 8 times. As I said, glass cannon. Goodbye! Oh dear. That's a good amount of attack power for one strike. Not the best I've seen or done, but still good.
Excellent! Spells and abilities with variable mana requirements are limited only by the number of lands you have.
And as I showed in the previous thing, sometimes even the number of lands you have isn't exactly your limit, because you can sometimes do a little bit of trickery with that. But here, it was mainly just about pumping the creature up. So, yeah. So, yeah. In fact, that charging up something's power specifically with mana, whether it's a given type or not, is sometimes referred to as pumping up a creature. So, yeah, that's like general that's like general MTG lingo there, so it happens. For now, though, this has been Glitch Reaper. I'll be signing off for now. That'll be enough lessons for today. So, in that case, hope to hear from you all later, and bye for now, everybody.